What's going on, guys? I'm glad you're here because this is going to be a good video. It's one that a lot of people have been waiting at least like a month for. Ever since I released that initial video on the Infitac thermal, I didn't have a whole lot of time to do a in-depth video. I just said it was going to be kind of an intro, but ever since that video, I've had tons of replies and comments saying, when are we getting the big video? When are we getting the detailed video, the long-term? Well, here it is. This is the in-depth review of the Infitac mini thermal sight. This is the long version, the one that's really detailed. I hope you guys are ready to listen because we got a lot to go over. So let's get to the video. All right, guys, before we get started, we got to do a few things. You know what we got to do. I got to let you know about all the links down below. There's a link to the Infitac. You can click it. It'll take you to the website for the mini thermal sight. We've got other affiliate links, like for this Bear Creek 22 upper. I've got a link for it. You can go to that link right there. It'll take you to a landing page. It's got all the other buttons for all the other websites because YouTube doesn't like linking certain websites. But anyway, stuff like Primary Arms, Die Free Company. It's got this Kung Fu grip right here. That's pretty cool. Like I said, Bear Creek Arsenal, Palmetto State, Primary Arms, Ace Link Armor, AR500, a whole bunch of cool affiliate links. So go down there and check it out. All right, so this is the video, the in-depth video for the Infitac mini thermal. It's the one I showed you about a month ago, a little sneak peek of. We're about to dive into this thing and really see, kind of what it's about, and if it's something that you should consider picking up for yourself. I've got some notes down here that I'm going to go over because there's a lot of info I want to discuss and kind of compare. So bear with me as we do that. All right, so the thermal sensor on this thing is a 256 by 192 at 12 microns. Basically what that means is the sensor is measured in pixels, so it's 256 across, 192 up. That's how many pixels, kind of like your TV has, your computer screen, stuff like that. That's the amount of pixels in the sensor. And at 12 microns, that is the, I can't remember what they call it, but it's basically the center of each pixel, how far apart the pixels are. So 12 micron, that's pretty standard for thermal imagers. 60 hertz refresh rate, which is on a pistol sight or like a gun sight, that's probably the most important thing. That's how fast that picture is refreshing, because it's basically a camera. It's taking little snapshots and linking them together very fast to make a video. That's how video works, if y'all didn't know that. But anyway, 60 hertz means it's taking 60 pictures a second. So it's displaying 60 pictures. The higher the hertz, the faster the frames per second and the smoother the image will be. And that also means the faster the image is going to be displayed to your eyeball. So when you're tracking and moving with the sight, it's not lagging as much. The lower the hertz or the refresh rate, the more you're going to notice that picture lagging behind real time as you're going across. Because if you've ever seen or heard a video about digital night vision, that's one of the complaints, is that there's an obvious lag in real time versus what you're seeing when you're trying to look with a real eye and a night vision eye, and they just don't match up great. So the higher the refresh rate, the better. And this has 60 hertz. And I'm really just heating up the middle because it's going to radiate out. I'm just holding it straight in the middle. I got the Bear Creek 22 upper, like I said, just because it's easier to shoot. It's not as loud for the neighbors and all that stuff, so it should be a little bit better to shoot with. So what I'm going to do now is just do some quick ups. Like if you're using this to shoot some animals like hogs kind of close, you get them in the woods and they come running out and you need to shoot them close, which is what this is designed for. It's not a long distance type thing. So That's really all we're doing is, you know, representing something close up. So let's try it. The weird thing is, you know, like a red dot, your eyes superimpose the target because you're looking through this. You can't quite do that with this because your eye is looking at that white target down there. And when you bring this up, you're not looking through it with the other eye. So you really just have to, you have to look only at this. You got to focus on this. We're taught to focus on the target and have the dot, you know, superimpose on top of it with your vision and all. But like I said, with this, it's kind of hard to do. You really just have to focus on that screen, which might make it a little bit harder to do like quick pop shots. You might have to find the, say if you are tracking a target, you might have to like find it in the thermal and then look at the thermal and just shoot. You know, you have to kind of shoot looking at the thermal. Which, it's not terrible. You know, I am probably less than 10 yards. I'm maybe like 7-8 yards away from that steel, but it's doing all right, I guess, for what it is. I guess if the target was a lot farther away, you might be able to, I don't know, it's just weird because one eye wants to focus all the way down there and this eye has to focus up here. Your eyes can't focus on two different things at once. They do it very fast. Like they can change focus faster than any camera, you know, you can think of, but it just can't do two different things at once. It has to focus on one or the other. So you kind of have to find it and then pull the sight up, or just look at the sight and kind of find it with the sight and then shoot from there, because you're not going to be able to just look at the target and then bring the dot up to shoot, because you're not going to see it. You can do that and then swap your eyes over, like bring it up and then swap your eye over to the thermal and do it that way, but it's not going to work like a traditional red dot. And like all those other thermals that have like the rubber cap on the end that you actually look through, like a night vision scope or something like that, it's going to be the same way with that. You're not going to just bring it up and do the same thing. You're going to have to lock your eye on it and find the target and track it kind of, or just locate it with the thermal and then shoot it. Like you're going to have to find it and you know, then shoot it like that. So it's just one thing to be aware of. Like, I think you can, you know, use it like that. It is kind of a small screen, but like, you know, I don't have another thermal to compare it to right now, but I imagine the screen in any thermal is probably going to be the same size. It might have a lens in the back that might magnify it to help it kind of appear bigger, but there, I mean, it can only get so big when it's on top of your gun. You're not going to have like an iPhone screen sitting on top of your gun. So either way, you're going to be looking through a small screen, or looking at a small screen and finding your targets, putting the dot on it and pulling the trigger. So as far as like the speed of coming up, like the refresh and the hertz or whatever, it seems to be pretty quick. Like it doesn't seem to be much lag. It's pretty snappy. So if you are leading a target, hog, rodent, whatever you're shooting, can't really shoot deer with thermals, at least not in Alabama. You can't use electronic like night vision and thermal to shoot. So anyway, hogs, coyotes, raccoons, whatever you're shooting at night or with thermals, you probably can put it maybe on the front. I had a pretty good conversation with a guy that hunts. Let me take these off. I feel like I'm just screaming for no reason. But I did talk with somebody on the phone. Had a pretty good conversation with somebody that has a lot of experience shooting hogs at night. You know, big batches of hogs. He said their range is probably like 20 to 40 yards that they're hunting with, and you know, they'll locate the group of them. they'll kind of move around, use the wind to get around them, and then, you know, jump them. When they all start running, they just, you know, everybody picks one, and they just start shooting. So they're shooting fast moving targets. You know, hogs can run pretty quick for what they are. So they're shooting fast moving targets with night vision or with thermal. And he was telling me on like a true night vision, like a tube, you can just kind of put the dot or your laser or your dot on the front, like the nose of the hog, pull the trigger, and it'll hit, you know, somewhere over here in the shoulder. He said some of these like thermals or digital night vision have slow like refresh rates, or, you know, where the picture on the screen doesn't keep up with your eyeball or what's happening in real time. It happens in a fraction of a second, but sometimes it's noticeable, especially with things like this. Anyway, he said you kind of have to lead in front of the animal and pull the trigger, because by the time, you know, you process, it processes and you process and you pull the trigger, it's a little bit behind, so it's not quite as fast. But it might just be something you have to kind of mess with. You know, take it hunting and see kind of if you can put it on the nose or if you have to lead it out front. Like I said, I don't shoot hogs a whole lot, so I don't have a whole lot of experience with that, but it seems pretty quick. Like, it doesn't seem like it lags a whole lot. It seems kind of, you know, in real time. So it's just something to think about. Another weird spec is the noise equivalent temperature difference. That's the NETD, and it's stated at less than or negative 25 millikelvin. It's MK, millikelvin. Probably don't know what that means. It's basically the sensitivity of the sensor to pick up differences in temperature. So the lower that number, the more sensitive the sensor is. It has stated 1,200 grams recoil. It can, you know, it's rated at 1,200 grams of recoil, which a lot of sites, a lot of handgun sites rate that because, you know, you're more worried about, it sees a lot more recoil on a handgun, which, you know, I've seen some rated anywhere from like 1,000 to 1,500. So I feel like 1,200 is kind of in that medium range. You should be all right with 1,200. That's kind of what I've seen a lot of other ones, you know, kind of rate theirs at. Just for a comparison on some of these specs, I wrote down some specs on a Armasight Jockey 320, and that's a clip-on thermal that goes in front of another optic that you can look through. It has a 320 by 240 resolution screen, so it's just a little bit bigger screen, I think, because it's still, the spacing is still 12 microns, so the pixels are spaced out the exact same. It just has a little bit more, probably a bigger view inside that sight because it's a little bit bigger sight. So you're getting the same, pretty much the same sensor specs inside the Infitac as you are the Armasight. And the Armasight, the 320, has a refresh rate of 60 hertz, just like the Infitac. And the NETD, or the noise equivalent temperature difference, on the Armasight is less than 40 millikelvin. So it's a little bit higher than the Infitac, which means the Infitac should have a little bit better, let's say, temperature difference, whatever. Should be able to pick up temperature difference a little bit better than the Armasight. The Infitac takes it's not a standard battery. You can find them on Amazon and, you know, places like that, but you're not going to find it at Walmart. Basically, it's not a CR123. I'm guessing they had to do that because of the size, like how small they had to make everything. So it takes like a 2-volt battery or something. It's like a 123, it's just smaller. So that's kind of a downside. I would rather have a 123 because it's common for everything else. But I can see why they, you know, had to put a smaller battery in there. And speaking of battery, it's stated to have about 5 hours of runtime, and that all depends on, you know, how much work the thermal's having to do, you know, transferring the image or whatever, the brightness of the screen on the back, the temperature and all that stuff. So about 5 hours. It's probably like maximum 5 hours because I put a battery in, and I would say it probably got about 3-ish hours, 3 or 4, something like that. So they say 5. You'd probably be lucky to get 5. I couldn't find any specs on the detection range, because a lot of people say how far, how far can it pick things up? Because there's three different ranges when you're talking about thermals. There's the longest range, like where it will actually detect a temperature at. And then there's like a middle range, can't remember the name of it. And then the shortest range is the identification range, like where you can actually pick out a shape of a human or an animal or, a target, whatever you're trying to hunt, like a hog or something. You can actually tell, hey, that's a hog. At those farther ranges, you say, hey, there's something warm out there. Don't know what it is. It's like just a few pixels worth of, image on the screen. Then that medium one is like, okay, it's definitely an object. And then when you get to that identification range, like I said, you can obviously make out what it is. I couldn't find any specs on that. A lot of people are asking. I couldn't find where they had them listed. But I will say it can pick up temperatures at 200-300 yards away. I haven't tried it any farther than that. I can pick up like birds flying overhead. I can see them on there. It'll pick up the temperature of them. I've seen a target at 100 yards. I've seen cows at 100, 125 yards. I know cows are kind of big, but you can pick up a cow from a long way away. So, for whatever it's worth, it is a pistol sight or a mini sight that doesn't have a zoom. So you can't expect it to be, making 300-yard shots with that kind of sight. It's just not what it's intended for. All right, so this thing is a mini sight. It's intended for like a pistol or a backup sight on a longer gun. I've got it mounted on this 22 right here. It's not permanent. It's just what I was using to kind of test it. So let's talk about the mounts that it comes with, or that it is supposedly going to be offered with. It comes with an RMR cut mount. So that, just that alone gives you plenty of options, because you can find anything for RMR. Like I've got it mounted on a Picatinny. It didn't come with it, but they're easy to find. I've got it mounted on a Picatinny. You can find RMR 45 offsets. You can find them like 30 mil piggyback RMR mounts. Basically, whatever you want to do with it, you can mount it. The way it does that, it's got this little plate right here that's got 4 screws, 2 on each side. And that plate mounts to the RMR plate, and then the sight mounts on top of it and screws in to the sides. I'm pretty sure they do that because you can't get to the RMR screws from the top, because this is a closed sight. It's not like an actual RMR where you can put screws through the sight. So you have to mount the plate, and then this fits into that, and then you screw it in. So to me, it seems pretty solid. The lockup on here is really tight even before you put the screws in. And so, the screws aren't even really doing anything for recoil. They're just holding it into that bottom bracket. And on Infitac's website, they mentioned that they will be offering all of those mounts I mentioned: 30 mil piggyback, 45 offset, even an acro mount, which I think would take out one step, because that would probably give you this 4-hold mount directly to those others, instead of having to put it in there, then put it on an RMR, and then do whatever with it. So it'll just take out one step in the mounting process. All right, so once you get this thing mounted, you got to zero it. It's just like any other digital optic. It has a digital reticle on it. And so we mentioned the pixels earlier. It's just a screen with a bunch of little pixels, and the way you zero it, you just go in through there and the options, and you have an X and Y axis, and you just tap it, and it moves that digital reticle each pixel at a time until it is where you want it to be, and then you lock it, save it, whatever, and it holds that reticle. So when you pick it up, the reticle might be like a little bit off or a little bit down. Just depends on how you've got it mounted and how your gun's shooting. So when you pick it up and look at it, like, man, that looks weird because it's not in the center. Well, it's not going to be, because it's moving on the screen and saving that position every time you use it. It has 3 different reticles. It has a 6 MOA dot, just the dot, or you can have that dot with like a small EOTech style circle, and then you can swipe it over and have the big, like 60 or 65 MOA circle around that dot. And it has like 3 or 4 different colors, like palettes, I guess what they call it. You can swipe through. You've got like a blue background where it gives like green and orange kind of temperature colors. You've got a gray background where it gives yellow and orange temperature. And then you've got like black and white, where obviously like the black will be the background and hot will be white, and then white background and black will be hot. So you've got 4 different colors. Whatever you want to do. I tend to like the gray background with the yellow and orange temperature. I don't know, I just think that's kind of cool. That's just the one I like to do. The reticle also has different colors. You can do green, red, black, and white. You just swipe to the side and it changes colors. I tend to like the green or the red. The black and the white, that didn't really stick out to me as one I wanted to use, because a lot of times it just blends in with those background colors. So the green and the red kind of stand out more. All right, let's go over some pros and cons real quick. Some of the pros are, the main one is the size and the weight and just, what it is. It's a small thermal. You can, put this on anything really, and you're not going to take up that much real estate. You can fit it anywhere, on the side, on the top, wherever you want to put it. You can add thermal capability to that weapon, whether it's a handgun, a rifle, whatever. And it only weighs 4 ounces. It says less than 4, so it's probably like just shy of 4 ounces. But anyway, that's probably, on par with any kind of like aim point micro. It's a little bit heavier than a reflex sight, but like an RMR, but this is like a closed sight with a battery and all that. So 4 ounces is not that bad. All right, another pro is the refresh rate, 60 hertz. I think that's pretty good. It's comparable to other thermal sights, so it's going to have a fast refresh rate. That image is going to not lag too much from real time, so you should be able to track and pick up targets a little bit better than some other sites with that 60 hertz refresh rate. So with that 5-hour max battery runtime, you can extend that because it has a standby mode. If you just tap the top button, it'll shut the screen down, and you just tap it again, it'll come right back on. So it kind of saves some of that battery. You're not running the display on the back, so if you know you're going to be there for a while, like waiting while you're hunting or something, you can cut it on and just hit that. And if you see some animals, tap it, get it back on. Just save your battery a little bit. Another pro, while we're talking about batteries, is the fact that it has a removable battery. Some people, it can be a pro and a con, because some people like chargeable batteries. Like, it would be cool if that USB-C on the side could charge the battery. It doesn't. The USB on the side is an alternate power source. It does one or the other. So, it just depends. Some people like being able to take the battery out, because you can, if it dies, you just throw another one in, and 20 seconds you're back up and running. You don't have to wait for it to charge, that sort of thing. So it's a pro and a con depending on what you like more. All right, so some of the things I didn't like about it were some of the parts on the touchscreen. To me, there's too many things that you have to do. You have to touch the screen to do. You have to touch it to zoom it. You have to touch it to change every little thing on there, which is good if you're working an iPhone. But with this, it's a really small screen. And, if your fingers are cold, it's not going to pick up very well. And if you got gloves on, I wish there was an option where the side buttons could do more of the changing of the reticles and colors and all that stuff. And also, it just gets your screen like filthy. I've got like finger grease on, you have to wipe your iPhone off a whole bunch because you get finger grease or sweat on it. It's kind of the same thing. This thing just tends to get dirty because you're always touching it and putting hand grease on the screen. All right, the next thing I wasn't really fond of was the swipe options, like how they're set up. It could just be, it needs a little getting used to, but they're kind of counterintuitive. Like, what I mean is, I find myself wanting to change colors of reticles, and I end up changing the reticle, because if you swipe one way, it does one option, and you swipe the other way, it does another option. So if you do it, you're like, oh, I want to go back, and you swipe back, well, now you change the actual reticle itself instead of the color. So you just have to keep swiping one direction until it goes through. Granted, there's only like 3 or 4 options for everything, but in my mind, if I go one way and I want to undo it, I should just go back, but you can't, because then you're all screwed up on another option. So you just have to keep scrolling until you get back to where you were and find the one that you want to be on. Okay, so this thing has a screen on the back. It's like backlit or whatever you want to call it. It displays light off the back, which all screens do that, but the bigger ones are housed inside of a unit, and some of them have like an eyepiece that kind of covers your eye, like a night vision, you know, that angled little accordion looking rubber piece, which kind of blocks the light from shining back on your face. So it doesn't block the light, it just covers, you know, what is seen from the outside. So that could be a con for this, is that open screen on the back. You know, when you're shooting, that light is shining back onto you. Now granted, the farther away, like a handgun, it's going to be farther away, or if it's like up here, it's going to be farther away, but it's still light that's coming back, that's shining on you. So depending on what you're doing or what you're using this for, that could be something you got to look out for. And while we're on the topic of the screen, that, you know, the screen on the back could be another bad thing, because it's not very protected. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's, you know, durable. You know, iPhone screens can take a pretty good beating and keep going, but, you know, it's not protected very much. So it could get banged around or like hit on something. You might could crack the screen, and then, you know, everybody's seen where you break a phone screen, it has that that liquid bleeds out behind it. I'm sure, you know, you could do that to this. I haven't tried it. You know, I'm not just going to beat the crap out of it for no reason, but that's just something you might have to look out for. All right, so we've gone over specs, we've gone over some of the pros, the cons. Now let's talk about what this thing is really designed for and how I think it should be used. It's marketed as a mini thermal sight. You see pictures of it on their website of it mounted to a handgun. To me, that doesn't seem like the best option. It is an option you could do, but to me, it seems best as a backup, or second, not even really a backup, a secondary sighting option. What I mean by that is, if it's on a rifle like this, you have a red dot, you have a scope, whatever. This is piggybacked or on the side as a secondary option. It's not so if your main one fails, you can go to this, because I just don't think a digital sight should be your main sight unless that's what the entire gun is intended to do. If it's like a hunting rifle, you know, yeah, it can be your main sight. But to me, for the way I use guns like this, I think it should be a secondary option on top of or to the side of your main. That way it just gives you thermal capability. You know, if it's smoky outside or foggy, you can't see through that with the naked eye, you can tilt over and use the thermal to look through the smoke. You know, we do that in the fire department all the time. We have thermals, really nice thermals on our trucks. That's what we use them for, to look through smoke, dark, smoky houses, and we can look through. We can find the fire. We can find victims, just looking for heat signatures through smoke. So if you find yourself in that kind of environment, you can use this to find the target. Or you could just use it to scan with. I think I tended to use that like that capability of it, is just to hold it up and scan for an area and see if there's even a target there. See if there's a hog or an animal or whatever even in the area. So I think this thing would be pretty cool if you could get a like quick detach Picatinny, like a nice one that would return to zero pretty well. So you could just leave that open Picatinny on top, and if you wanted to throw this on there, you could easily click it in, take it with you. If you didn't want it, you could take it off, put it in a pocket or pouch, something like that, just to save a little bit of weight and size for when you're not really using the thermal. Say like daytime, take it off, nighttime, put it back on. And if you can take it off, you could also use it as a standalone thermal just to scan with, like I said. That way you're not pointing your gun at things you don't really know that you might want to shoot at. It's kind of the whole gun-mounted light versus handheld light. Handheld lights are important, so you can scan without pointing your gun, because you don't want to point your gun at your kid, because you don't know it's your kid making noise in the house. That's why you use a handheld. That's different discussion, different video, but you get the point. All right, this thing being a non-magnified optic, it's not going to be intended for, or it's not going to be well suited at long range targeting. It doesn't have a zoom feature. I tried to put a a magnifier behind it, and I don't know, it just didn't seem to work very well, because like the magnifier has to focus on this screen, and you're not really magnifying anything. You're just magnifying the screen on the back. And you know, I don't know how those clip-on thermals work. They probably have a set of lenses that, you know, help do that, but and you can't put anything on the front because thermals can't see through glass. If you know, when you shine a thermal on a piece of glass, it's just going to reflect your own image. So we run into that a lot with our fire department thermals. You know, if you hit some glass, it can't see through it. So that's just something they're just not going to work at. So all that being said, I don't know how long this video was, but if you want a secondary thermal option, this is a good option I think you could go with. As a pistol, not my cup of tea, but hey, if you have plenty of pistols laying around and you want to dedicate one, a thermal, say you've got like a hunting pistol, big caliber, slap one of these on there. If you have like a hog gun and you want this to be your dedicated sight, I think it'll work out pretty well. It'll definitely work out well as a second, like a piggyback or 45 for your varmint hunting or hog hunting, things like that. Yeah, I think I'm going to try to find a quick disconnect, like a throw lever mount for this thing, because I think that would make it really cool to be able to use it as a standalone kind of a monocular and then slap it on a gun when you need it to. So there it is. That's the long-winded review of the Infitac Mini Thermal. I hope you liked it, and if you did, go down below, subscribe for more cool videos. I'm trying to get some cool stuff going. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. God bless y'all. We'll see y'all next time. All right, the target is out there at the corner of the screen, maybe 40 yards away. I'm just going to shoot it without looking like down the sight, because it's a screen on the back. You don't have to be lined up. You're not looking through the sight. You're looking basically just at the screen. So you can look at it, like I can hold it down here like this. As long as I can see that screen, I can shoot just like this. So you don't have to be lined up. You know, it's not an optical scope, it's a digital scope, if that makes any sense. So let me show you what that looks like.